collection is actually a modified ERC20 token in the same vein as the CryptoPunks are a modified ERC20 token. In fact, it was the Larva Lab guys, Matt and John, who gave their CryptoPunks contract to DADA to modify and use to launch this 2017 collection. We believe that it's the first time ever that artists' royalties were encoded in a smart contract. So it has, for me personally, enormous historical significance, right? It was the thing that said, yes, look, blockchain can solve the problem of automating artist royalties. And you know, it took a long time for the rest of the market to come around and actually believe in that, even though it was technically easy to do. And we still fight to this day. There are platforms that don't even think about adding that in to their contracts. So it's an ongoing conversation, which is another theme that we'll get into in this presentation.
I can't hear anything, and you can't hear me.
Or conversation.
Awesome. Okay, so we are recording, so we're good to go whenever we're good to go whenever you are. I think Judy is trying to get back on, but if you and Lenara, you want to take it away, go for it.
Cool. Yeah. Lenara, are you all set?
Yes, I'm all set.
Okay. So if I do this, does it actually switch to, it does. Good. Okay. So I guess all of you guys have been through weeks and weeks and weeks of, this is NFTs, this is how you do NFTs, this is the difference in platforms and the tech behind the platforms and blockchain and wallets and all of the market-based stuff for selling your art as an NFT. And one of the things that DADA has been doing alongside that is this thing called the invisible economy. As you can read here, it's a system based on intrinsic motivations, and that was the first thing to explore, was the difference between intrinsic motivations and extrinsic motivations. And I think we touched on that in the last session that we did with you guys, and the importance between those two different modes of working, particularly in creative work.
I just need to interrupt you because the screen is, I don't know if it's just for me, but it keeps flashing up, like kind of going back and forth, like flashing.
Okay.
Is it just for me?
Or for me, it looks okay.
Okay. Then maybe it's just me. I kind of see it like going black and.
Let me try doing it again and see if that's any better. I've just reshared it. Better?
Seems so. No, actually, it's the same.
No.
I think it's flashing.
Okay, so if I'm not full screen, does it still do it?
Okay, yeah, let's go with it. It's fine. It's fine. Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay, I just won't do it full screen.
For me, it's okay. For me, it's okay. Just wanted to say.
Yes, I'm
For
here.
me, it shows okay too.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Okay. Well, I mean, it doesn't need to be full screen. Everyone, there's not many words, so people don't really have to read these very carefully. It was just a way of starting as a starting point for Lenora and I to talk about the invisible economy. So like I said, we went deep into extrinsic and intrinsic motivations and the different ways those manifest and the different kinds of environments that allow or constrain those motivations from expressing themselves. And one of the things that we came up with is this idea of a conversation. Oops, I shouldn't be adding more slides. It is just a continuous flow. When you're motivated intrinsically, there is this flow that you sort of connect to and follow. And it doesn't have deadlines. It doesn't have numbers attached to it. It doesn't have any of those status signals that we've become very accustomed to in the marketplace world. And so one of the things that we discovered was that when you have markets and you have leaderboards and you have comparisons or rankings between, token holders or people in general, you will always have competition which quashes cooperation and quashes intrinsic motivation. And so the environment becomes very important in determining the results that you get, in determining the kinds of outcomes that you get. So we started a conversation about what is this environment? What does it look like? What is so different about it? What are the key attributes of it? And one of the things that we found by doing that is that everything that we do in DADA is a conversation. So I don't know if you've seen DADA.art as a platform. Certainly the conversation on the beginning page on the front cover of the presentation is a conversation on DADA.art. So if you remember back to the previous talk that we gave, we showed you these visual conversations where someone creates a drawing and then someone responds to that drawing with another drawing. And that is a conversation visually between artists. And then we started doing these, what we term sense-making sessions. And what we found was that was an ongoing conversation with different threads that got picked up or put down. And the important ones continued on. And the ones that didn't feel right or didn't fit with the outcomes that we wanted got dropped. And perhaps at a future time, we'll go back and pick up some of those threads and see what we could make of them with more knowledge or more experience. But it's a very interesting, very organic way of arriving at outcomes without having, bullet point action, to-do lists, deadlines, all of those things that interrupt flow. Did you want to say something, Lenore? Are you okay for now?
Yeah, I'm fine. Go ahead. It's great.
Okay. Okay. So to begin, and we are always beginning. We never stop beginning. Everything is a beginning. We begin with a conversation, and everything that we're doing in the invisible economy can be seen as a conversation. So a conversation needs a starter, right? And that's, like I said, these slides are really just a prompt. They're a conversation starter. So I hope that you guys here, if you have questions or want to go further in detail about anything that we say, that you'll raise your hand or speak up, because this should be just the start of many conversations about the various topics. So when you go to DADA and you go to create your first drawing, this is what you're presented with. You click on the little orange dot with the pencil, and this is what comes up. It's a blank canvas. And most artists are familiar with a blank canvas. Some artists hate a blank canvas. Some artists are hesitant to start. But if you're always just beginning, you can always just be starting. So start. Make that first mark. Go out, do something, say something, put something out in the world that people can respond to. Because it's only by doing that first that the world can offer things back to you. So that first action, that first drawing, that first idea, that first conversation is the offering. It is the action. And that's one of the things that we found was consistent across the board in the Telegram group, in our Invisible Economy Discord server, in the sense-making sessions, in the DADA app itself. It is all about this interchange of an offering and then a gift in return, which is also an offering to the next person. So if you look at this, this is a conversation that I had with an artist in China, Lushan, and she created this first drawing. You can see sort of the line there between the drawings. We try to make them as seamless as possible most of the time, but sometimes you can see where they delineate. So that was her drawing, and this was my response to that drawing. And then she responded to me, and I responded again to her, and it went on through this next series of drawings. And sometimes you get interrupted if you want to see it as an interruption, or sometimes you get another opportunity. So in this bottom line, you have Lushan making that first drawing as an offering, me responding, her responding to me, and I think it was Thursday who responded to Lushan, opening up what is called a branch on DADA. And it's a whole nother sort of additional conversation that is an added layer that adds richness to the whole drawing conversation on DADA. And so this branch can go on to infinity, right? As long as there is an artist who wants to respond, someone can add a drawing to this conversation. And that's one of the beautiful things about doing things, sort of using this methodology and doing things in this way, is that it is infinite. There is no end goal other than to continue to play the game. So if you've not read the book Finite and Infinite Games, go off and read that book.
And what has always amazed me, can you hear me?
Yes, Judy.
Is that you see that illustration that Sparrow has on the screen, and it seems so seamless and so almost like it was made by one person. And what amazes me is that is that kind of instinctive thing that happens where people really want to converse. They're not just gonna see a drawing and go and do their own thing. They're going to follow that melody or follow that I always compare this to kind of like music jams or jazz improvisations where like somebody starts with a theme or colors or a feeling or and people actually give back without any agenda or getting together and plotting anything or saying you have to do this now. It's just so spontaneous and free and open that and then it turns out to be this magnificent thing, and they can be very different, but I think that is the same with when we have actual verbal conversations in the way that we do the sense making sessions in the invisible economy. We realize that usually the reason why they sometimes last 2 or 3 hours is that it's almost like also bands, when you go to a concert and the band is kind of like getting into the groove at the very beginning, and it takes them a little while to kind of like, the same thing happens. It maybe probably after the hour and a half mark, like all these insights start coming out. Not that the other hour is not interesting, but it's something that kind of like has this momentum where people start getting ideas, and the flow is super free, and then it gets super super profound and interesting.
Yes, for sure. And I think the other point to make on that is it completely disassembles the concept that an individual artist working on their own, that they are a genius and they don't rely on other people, or they've done all of this, genius work all on their own. Because we know deep down as a community that none of us could ever achieve the things that we are doing on our own. We know that, I contribute one tiny bit of an idea that then sparks something in someone else, just like these conversations, these visual conversations. I'll put out an idea, somebody picks that up because it sparks an idea in them and they build on it, and then a third person in the conversation comes and goes and puts the two together, and we make a leap forward that none of us could have ever done on our own. And that's sort of akin to, playing jazz music, and you just get into that flow and create really beautiful things by riffing off of each other. And it's been an amazing experience to actually participate in that and feel that kind of energy. But yes, so the offering, because everything that we're doing is based around intrinsic motivations, so everyone only ever does what they want to do, what they're interested in doing, or what they feel like they can contribute. And that brings about these really unique results. They're not really even results. It is just this dynamic that intrinsic needs can be the same. So there are some basic needs that all human beings have. In this example, validation and safety are two of the ones that we looked at. And we looked at those needs in terms of extrinsically motivated actions and intrinsically motivated actions. So if you're extrinsically motivated to collect art or buy a token, the way that you do that, your contribution, is just only ever money. The way that you express those same actions, collecting art, stewarding art, we call it, or buying a token, the contribution that you are making is not money ever in the invisible economy. It is actually your action. Your action is your contribution. You don't need money as the contribution. Your action becomes that contribution. And the aha moment, the huge just mindset shift that we got to, is that action, which is your contribution, is also your reward, because it satisfies that need, that intrinsic need, prompted your action. And so if you're looking for validation, not status, you steward art, you curate the art that you're stewarding, which gives you a sense of belonging to this community that is, we call DADAkin. And that belonging satisfies your need for validation. Extrinsically, you collect art, you purchase it with money, which is your contribution, and that might possibly get you a top collector ranking. And that might give you some validation for a little while until somebody else comes and takes that position from you. Or it becomes meaningless to you, or you have to keep throwing in money to maintain that top collector, and it becomes a hamster wheel, and you don't feel any validation at all. You just keep doing something to try and satisfy this need that will never be satisfied, because you're looking to do it with it from an extrinsic reward mindset. So that was one of the really deep insights and shifts in the way we looked at almost everything, that we arrived at through sense-making sessions together. And it was this aha moment that the actions that we're taking, participating in the invisible economy, are our contributions to the invisible economy and the DADA community. And they are also, just by the sheer fact of taking those actions, the actions are the rewards in themselves. So we called this our ground truth. And then that became the basis of everything else and all of the other conversations that we've had since then. So we have individual needs, my need for safety or community, belonging. The actions that I take are a gift to the community. So I contribute my time, my drawings, my skills, whatever I can, as a gift to the community. And because I'm doing that based on intrinsic motivations, just by participating, just by actually doing those actions, I get a sense of belonging, I get a sense of security, I get a sense of safety. We'll look at the other bits in 2 slides from now. But this was the basis, that all of those intrinsic needs, if you act from those, if your actions are based on those intrinsic needs, then your contributions to the wider community become the rewards in and of themselves. So you're not doing something just to get a token. You're not doing something just to get a spot on a leaderboard. You're not doing something just to sell art. And it's just so much more satisfying. And it's definitely a much more calm and peaceful and fulfilling way of living a life. And it's possible because we're doing it, I think, is the other thing. It might sound utopian to people that haven't experienced it, but we have been doing this and living this for the past 1 year. And everything that we've done over the past year has been pretty much validation of this one ground truth, and that is how all of the things that we've been able to accomplish actually get accomplished. So the way that we looked at this is by paradigm shifts. So I said it takes a shift in perception, and we often think, doing NFTs and doing crypto art requires a shift in perception, and for a lot of people it does, because they're probably back here in the real world, art world, where only physical art is art. And so moving on to crypto art is a bit of a leap. The crypto art market is absolutely 100% optimized for money. And if you optimize for money, then with a bit of luck, maybe you can sustain a career of just making art. But because it is a market, it operates on the Pareto principle, which is that 80-20, that, there's a very small percentage of people at the top, and they will just keep making more and more. And there's that very, very long tail of people at the bottom. The majority of people will make very little or nothing at all. And that is just the result that markets provide. Always, everywhere, in everything. And there is no way of escaping that. That is the result that markets produce. So the invisible economy we see as being this hill too, in our terms. And that's where we're optimizing for protection. So we are protecting our community, our artists, our art, and ensuring that those market forces that drive competition, that drive measuring artists against each other, that do leaderboards and basically reduce everything down to one metric, which is how much have you earned, how much have you sold, what's your total volume, how many, all of that stuff. We're protecting the art and the artists and the DADA community by saying we don't want any of those we don't want numbers even at all. So instead of people being incentivized by tokens, being incentivized predominantly by money, because it is very one-dimensional, everything gets optimized for price. It is very competitive. It has to be competitive because there will only ever be a very few winners. The star systems always lead to inequality and a measuring. Someone always has more, someone always has less. What we wanted was an environment where we could protect and reconnect to our intrinsic motivations. Because another key finding that we came across is about 20 years of research that says as soon as you begin introducing extrinsic rewards, and a lot of these studies were done in education specifically, but there are more there are broader studies as well, but over half were to do with motivating children to learn. But as soon as you started introducing external rewards for behaviors, it greatly reduced or killed the intrinsic motivation to do that same task. So what happens is people are happy helping, people are happy doing things, and as soon as you begin to pay them, say, to do those same things, their desire to do those things reduces. They then see it as a job, a chore, and something to not look forward to. The human mind is really fascinating. But yes, as soon as you introduce external rewards like do retweet this and get these social currency tokens, right? That's a very transactional exchange, and it is completely extrinsically motivated. Do this thing and get this reward, this external reward. And it actually takes a lot of energy. I mean, I know several artists who have their own social currency. And it was almost like a full-time job trying to administer the different things that people could do and how much people should get by doing them, and thinking of new ways to, make people do things for tokens. And it seemed like way too much work for me. So I've not ever done a social token myself, but I've seen the experiment play out, and it is true. It not only reduces the intrinsic motivation for the people performing the tasks, it actually reduces the intrinsic motivation for the people creating the tasks, trying to think up the things that can be done for these external rewards. And that was actually an interesting thing to see happen. The complex value representation and to optimize to protect creativity is the other side of that, because that's a whole other body of research that says as soon as you pay someone, and they've conducted these studies over, it's a very famous study. They've done it all over the world in different societies. So it isn't just a Western or European social norm or anything. It literally is, as soon as you have money attached to a task, your creativity in doing that task decreases. And so we wanted to provide the environment, protect the community of artists and creators and developers and other people, thinkers, just contributing to the invisible economy, protect them from the extrinsic inundation so that they could reconnect to their actual intrinsic motivations, which is why it's so important that people only do what they feel like they want to do for DADA. We don't pay anyone to do things, and yet we look back and there are all of these amazing things that we've done. And Judy or Lenara can go into maybe some of those things when we start talking about the future of holochain. So I'll wind up here fairly soon. But we can already see that there is this next hill, and we think that this next hill is what we're building, what will be on holochain, and then we'll know that our protection worked well enough for us to create something truly new and truly innovative.
Yeah. I mean, what amazes me, quite frankly, is that in this, I worked in advertising for many years and in corporate structures with, we all know, or, what that is like to get things done, to have deadlines, to, get to meetings, to all of these kind of like deliverables and stuff like that. And I am amazed at the level of the stuff that we have been able to accomplish, because it's not only just check marking, okay, did this. It's not only how many things, but more importantly, the quality and the level and the profundity of what we have accomplished. Bea and I always say that we couldn't have done it in a structure even that is supposed to be more organized or more hierarchical or and more efficient and more effective. It just simply probably would have died by committee, because that's kind of like the nature. And here things is the contrary. Things don't die by committee; they live. They kind of flower and blossom. And I have to be honest, I'm very skeptical because you're I'm a very kind of structure oriented person, and I was like, what is happening at the beginning? But I have to say that like, for instance, going to Holochain, discovering that route that I am less familiar than Sparrow and Lenara, and they will be better guides than me. But those kinds of like going into certain rabbit holes together and finding solutions for complicated, all kinds of things, either technical issues or how to deal with certain community stuff. And it's always been smart and sensible and arrived at with deliberation and with real thinking, and not once, which is a really kind of miraculous part in a way, have I ever felt that there is anyone trying to have a power trip or say it's my idea and I'm claiming this and we need to do this because I said this. None of that stuff. Um, no, not the kind of like easy consensus that happens when everybody's just waiting for the boss to just chime in, but everybody's trying not to. None of that, because it's a completely different animal, and so I again, we believe that it can be used for many different things, not only for art. And at some point we had people in the sense making sessions that came from very different backgrounds. Like we had a gynecologist, a doctor who, she's kind of like medical ethics. She that's her specialty, and she wanted to see like how she could create like a governance structure for this for medical ethics within her hospital or her field. We had people in India who were trying to help agricultural communities. So it is something that I guess it works, but it does require really kind of like thinking in a completely different way than what you're used to.
And also, we discussed a lot about how to onboard, let's call it, people to it. How do we people, get to this point of this wonderful sense making sessions? And for a while we thought that there would be some kind of like formula or like step by step instruction that we could use because it could be quite a shock if you're used to the normal meetings, right? And then you have all this like agenda and like super time restriction and productivity and all the stuff, and how do you really go deep and take the time to have all these beautiful contributions. And basically it's really is a process. It's not something that you teach a class about it. Yeah, we can tell you how it's been working, but if you were to right now start doing it, you actually have to learn by doing it, by going through the process. um and I guess we used one of the principles of permaculture, that is observe and interact. So basically you have to give yourself the time to observe, and as you interact and as you do this, you actually kind of learn to feel how it feels. And after a certain point it just feels right. You know what feels right because you're used to doing it. um so you kind of really kind of embody this whole process in yourself. Is not so much something that you intellectually learn, but like it kind of goes beyond that, the way you get into it. That's what I wanted to say.
No, that's really important, Lenora. It is. That flow, that process is ongoing, and people dip in, and some people stay in, some people dip in and out. Um, but the flow, it's like a river, right? It is always flowing, and it's there available for everyone to go into.
I think we
But it
had
might
some
take
people.
a bit of time to adjust to the water.
Yeah, I think we had some people who were like a bit kind of shocked, like, kind of like a pushback, horrified. I don't know how to explain in the beginning. But also we had people that they just took part in like one session, and they were like, whoa, you know this is what I wanted, and really felt like finally, you're doing something that feels right, because they kind of already had that. But because sometimes it's just like, it's so against what you normally go through, in like a professional life, or even your artistic life. We're kind of like, trained to not do this, which is actually a more natural way, I think. So having the space where you can do it is really a gift, to have that space. And then lots of people just recognize that, okay, this is actually a space where I can contribute, and let my intrinsic motivations guide me from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, so I guess I'll do like a couple more, and then we can dive deeper into Holochain, which is really um, has been involved in that community, and it's been this really interesting discovery that these, the DADA community and the Holochain community have been operating for years, sort of in parallel universes, and then discovering each other, and the delight that, wow, these other people exist, and they're thinking like us, and the way that they're operating is like us. And it was like this really amazing experience to read and hear and participate in that community, and go, wow, no, this is exactly the stuff that we need to do the things that we want. So yeah, we'll talk about that in just a minute or two. Um, but what I was talking about earlier, and the different needs, intrinsic and extrinsic, we actually put them together into this. It's based on the ikigai, but it isn't an ikigai. But it is a way of sort of visually showing the different kinds of needs that people have and how full or not full they are. So what we imagine is that as people perform actions in the community, that these petals of this flower, if you think of it as a flower, these circles will begin to fill up, and you'll be able to see that you're actually fulfilling the intrinsic needs in a way that you need, right? So we understand that people need to live, and we understand that people need validation. We understand that people need autonomy. But we also understand that all of those things are interrelated and balanced. And that in order to actually feel happy, my term, in order for me to actually feel happy, I need to feel like I'm not lopsided. I need to feel like more things are complete than incomplete. And this was a nice visual way of actually seeing the things that I'm doing satisfying the needs, the actual needs that I have. So like it says, it can be used as a compass to see, what kinds of things you might need to think about doing, and it's completely up to you. It's a guide. It starts with self-compassion, because no one is going to be perfect. And that's another thing that art really teaches you, that, you can strive for perfection, but you will never reach it. And that any action that you take in the community, on DADA, with DADA, for DADA, in that environment, is the reward, because it's going to fill one of these petals, and you will feel that. And I guess, so this is sort of the last talking point, because it was a big deal. Everybody thinks about mapping contributions in terms of, well, we'll assign points to this, or we'll assign tokens to this, or, like I was talking about, how many tokens do you get for a like and a retweet, or, all of the contributions traditionally have been, contribution tracking systems have traditionally been based on numbers. And the bad thing about numbers is, when you assign numbers, your brain automatically latches on to those numbers, and it automatically goes, he's got a bigger number than she does, or I've got a bigger number than, Lenara does, or Judy's got a bigger number than I have. And we get really focused on the numbers when they're there, and our brain doesn't seem to want to ever let go of that. It's really hard, if the numbers are there, to not see them, or not process them, even subconsciously in your head. And so we worked out this system of mapping contributions, not only the actions that people took, but also how they felt when they were participating. And so each one of these elements represents either an action or a feeling. And by doing that, you can represent, rather than quantify, you can represent people's contributions in a way where A, they're beautiful, they're like art, and B, you can't really compare. You know, is Boris's better than mine? You know, that there is no way to evaluate to a ranking or anything else, right? So that was another key insight that we made, and it really does need that mindset shift to the second hill to say, no, we're not going to quantify things. We're going to represent contributions in a way where we can value those contributions without comparing them. We can value everybody's individual contribution in a way that means that one contribution is not more important or greater than anyone else's contribution. Um, and so that was another key. And then the naming the ongoing conversations we need to be in is sort of the next step, and that's probably the way to open it up to Holochain, because it was discovering that conversation that the Holochain community was having that has really broadened our horizon for what is possible, and brought us out of some of the limitations that we have found with blockchain and with NFTs in particular, because Holochain, although it's a distributed ledger, um, it doesn't work in the same way as a blockchain works. But I'll pass things over to Lenara at this point so that she can talk about Holochain, because she has a lot more experience at it than I do.
Okay. So I think that I like a lot. I have just a few images, but I like a lot. It's one of my favorite ever insights, like visual insights. Is the hills, the three hills that Farrow had in her presentation before. And it kind of shows this path, where you reach like the top, and then actually to go beyond, to go this paradigm shift or this mind shift, it looks like you're like going down the cliff, so to speak. And but then you are able to actually reach something beyond that, like the next hill. um and yeah, it's been super rewarding to start talking to Holochain. And I don't know, you probably haven't heard of them because they are, kind of still um, working with different groups and developers, to build these apps. But basically, it's quite profound. It's kind of like almost like a new internet, actually. And is a super, really, truly distributed peer-to-peer system. Let's see if I can show just a few slides that I got, just like some quick images. Um, let's see. Okay. So this is kind of like a super basic slide that they have to compare, the first two is what we see all the time. So the difference between blockchain being decentralized instead of one, center in central server in the middle, we can have different nodes or miners, validators, etc. But still you have one chain that is, the chain. And the whole idea of securing, protecting this chain is to make sure this is, the only truth of everything is registered. And Holochain goes beyond that, and that is really several chains, but at the same time they are interconnected, so they are still have all this integrity and validation to them. But a lot of the kind of unnecessary work done to maintain one chain is actually not needed. uh, and they take this inspiration from how things work in nature. So from the cells of the body, or different beings in the ecosystem, and how they interact and share the world, basically. um, there's no need for one single place where everything is. And then what happened is that is really, really powerful. You can really scale it way beyond these things that we're seeing now. For example, the blockchain um, doesn't have as a maximum number of transactions and thing, and people like fight for space in the chain, and like they're like gas wars where you have to pay more for this very limited space. And even other options that they are a little bit better, that's what they are, they're a little bit better. They still can't scale at very large um, scope. So that's kind of like what the holochain proposes as an architecture, and it's a really cool project that has been going on since a long time. Actually, I think the beginning, it was called, it's still called, like, this more encompassing project is called Scepter, from Receptor. um and I think they started around 2008 or so to think about this project. There's this whole idea of currency, as we think about money as currency, but they use this concept called current see. So it's, you see a flow is a way of making visible any flow, not necessarily money. And it's really, really beautiful. So now we're at this point where these things are converging. You know, Dada and Holochain are starting to work together. um So one of the very basic things, like when we started talking to them, they gave us this task of figuring like the very basic building blocks of data, what they call the grammar, and how to code this into the app inside Holochain. And they call this kind of very basic instructions for the app. They call it the DNA of the app. So that kind of also takes from the analogy from nature. So this is our a little piece of our huge board that we have. It's kind of like a crazy. When we send the link to this board to people, like the first say, "Whoa, what a board!" And you're seeing just like a small part of it. I can zoom out later, but so we really got to thinking, what is the grammar? What is, like, the small building blocks of what Dada does, so we can actually create like an holochain app that works for Dada. And it actually goes beyond just NFTs. And actually it makes NFTs go beyond what we see NFTs are at the moment, really, because all these possibilities are so much wider, and they're not all these limitations of, okay, we have to fit this into what the blockchain does, so what we're gonna make it small, or make it the minimum. And the way that holochain sees is make it the minimum, but in a very different way. It's not into make it small, but look into these real building blocks, like the DNA for a living organism. So that's what we've been doing so far with Holochain. It's kind of like in the beginning of the talks, but the idea is that the whole data website can become a Holochain app, and also it can be actually hosted by people. The idea, one of the apps that is right now being built by Holochain is a hosting server, like a decentralized hosting called Holo, which is different. People sometimes confuse, oh, there's Holo and there's Holochain. So Holo is actually a hosting app, and that means that your spare computer, or even, like, maybe even your cell phone, like any device that you have, can be part of this distributed network and host files, and so it's kind of like way beyond IPFS, what we understand now. And Holo does have a reward, like a currency built into it, but it's so much different than what we see now as like a blockchain token. Is actually a mutual credit accounting system. And people go kind of like really take who are used to tokens and things like that, and they ask what is the supply, and it's like, well, there is no supply. It's an accounting system, and the general balance is always zero. So that's kind of, what? Well, how can that be? But basically, zero is kind of like this, reference point. So I issue my own credit. So basically, everyone issues their own credit. So let's say if I'm a host, or it could be for anything, not just for hosting. But if I'm a host, I issue my credit that says I can host, this much capacity this month. So I issue that credit, and someone else that is, needs the hosting will take my credit. Uh, so that creates like both like one positive and one negative entry at the same time. And that's why the average is always zero, and that also means that there is no scarcity, because there's not a limited amount of tokens or currency that people have to fight for, and then okay, so now the price go up. So basically really adjusts organically to what's going on, so that if there is a lot of demand, it organically adjusts to that. And if there is less, it also organically adjusts, and it can grow, it can change, it can contract, and is kind of more fair to all the people involved. So everybody, instead of someone getting to issue the money and then trying to get all the others to FOMO on it, everybody just gets to issue to each other their own credits in this system. Um, so the idea is that the DADA app will then can be just hosted by people who are using the app, and we don't need Amazon, for example, to host. We don't need like IPFS to host. We're kind of our own improved IPFS in that system. And then we encode all these basic actions that are possible, and that's really powerful. We're getting to the point where we're actually identifying like the phonemes, not even the letters, not even the words. So instead of identifying the words and the grammars, we identifying the sounds that make the words. And if you think about there, not that many sounds, but think of all the languages that can be spoken with those sounds, right? So of course, some languages have different sounds than others. Some sounds are more common; they appear in more languages than others. If you try to learn a language later in life, you will find some sounds are very difficult to make, and that will actually tell people you're not a native speaker, right? But from the beginning, you could learn any language and use all these ways to communicate with the sounds that our body can make. So it's super powerful what we're doing. And yeah, it's just and people are really excited. This is it's so nice to have meetings with the holochain people, because we are really excited about them, and they are really excited about what we're doing. So I think it's really like a good synergy to invest in, and because it really is a mindset shift uh, kind of thought. That's why we think that this is actually already taking us to the next hill, as we call it, to the next place. That might sound weird and strange, and it might sound that you need to kind of jump into this abyss for a while, but if you can have a glimpse of it, it's really inspiring to see it.
That was
So
a beautiful explanation.
It also
Sparrow, were you going to
explains.
say anything?
Yeah, I was just going to add. So I agree. how Lenara put it is really beautiful, because it makes me realize just why that is the next hill, because in that kind of environment, we don't need to optimize for protection anymore. The reason that we're optimizing for protection is because we are still alongside a market and all of those market forces. And it will only be once we cross that chasm and move to holochain, where the market forces aren't at the center of everything as they are in NFTs on blockchain, that there won't be a need to protect in the same way as what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's true. That makes a lot of sense.
I
So
recognize that poem. No, go ahead. I mean, I know that Ilan and I were trying, because when you talk about grammar, then you start talking, well, what the rules or whatever, but also what are the poetics of it? How can you? I mean, these are complicated concepts, but what I wanted to leave people here with is that I think that we are all engrossed and engulfed in an ecosystem currently that we just almost kind of automatically react to. It's very reactive, and we all do all these reactive things. I have to buy, I have to sell, I have to shill, I have to promote my art, I have to paint, and it's not only extremely stressful, but what I just want to leave everyone with is that it's not the only way. It's not just like the only system that exists. And Dada, I think that we have always been creating new systems. It's still super early in blockchain crypto art space, even though it feels like forever. And it's always looking into experimentation and finding different ways of doing things, and that can lead you to very interesting discoveries. And to make it more of a practical point, you don't have to just be in one and that's it. You can kind of like dip your toes in and find a place where you feel comfortable and you feel cared for and you feel safe and you feel creative, and you can continue trying to know what you're doing, but at least you have the respite and you have the options. It's always good to know that there are options out there, and there are really smart people and really sensitive people, and trying to come up with better ways to connect, to create, and to thrive, for people to thrive, not be kind of eaten away by the merciless, demands of the market.
yeah, and I also want to add that during this like journey of Dada doing these things, um, we had all these people come to us, and there is really like a need for that, and people recognize, they really feel that they want a space for doing such things that is different than what Judy is saying. This kind of, like one eat another, like one fight with another kind of market ruthless thing that is kind of like push and sold to us. No, this is the way. This is how the world is. You have to bend and adapt to it. And people really feel deep inside that, wait, that can't be right. Like that can't be what life and the world is about. And then when they find other people like with the same um feelings, they are validated, and when they find a space where actually that is valued and nurtured, is really like it's really a great feeling to find, and where they can actually contribute what they're good at, which is their gifts to each other. So we have received wonderful gifts, like people who are extremely talented, like it's amazing, and they come to that and say, oh, I just want to do this. because that gives me like a purpose to what I can do, and do something for something I believe is the right thing to do, and that's their intrinsic motivation for doing it. So it's not like we don't even like it doesn't make sense to even hire people, because then you go back to the extrinsic motivations, right? And it's not that we are exploiting anyone. Like the whole point is that you only do if you that's what you want to do. There's it's not like we're, oh, you have to do this for us. No, it's the opposite. You're welcome to do what you want to do because you feel good and you like it, and that's rewarding for you in itself. This is not like a trick to to bring people. So, and it's really beautiful to watch, and kind of welcome people into participating in the way that they feel is the best way for them.
I think that's another key, though, Lenora, is if people did come intrinsically motivated and then found that we were setting deadlines and assigning tasks and everything else that you see in a lot of other communities that seem to be trying to do similar things to Dada and create this sort of self-sustaining economy, because we have programmable money now. Most of the other ones still use the methods of that organizational structure of, these are the tasks that need to be done, and these are when they need to be done by, and we want you to do this or that. And so that combination burns people out. People might have very good intentions when they start off, and huge intrinsic motivations to help. But if the organization of that work is still top down or is still inherently competitive, people will burn themselves out, and then they won't have anything else to contribute. And so a part of our thing of protection is we're protecting people from burning out in that way by creating the environment where they can choose not to do something, which is a really revolutionary idea. I mean, just imagine the ability to say, no, I don't feel like doing that. I don't want to do that today. I don't want to do that right now. I'd rather not. And how many areas in life can we actually say that? We're not. We're not empowered to be able to say that. We're coerced into feeling like we have to do all of these things for extrinsic reasons. Whereas if we had the space to connect with our intrinsic motivation, we could find out what we really want to do, and we could have the space to actually do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's key. That's one of the keys. It's part of really embedding the not just, okay, this is something nice that we will want to do, and it's really like walking the walk, like really embedding it into the most basic practices.
So, does anyone have any questions, comments? We would love to hear from you. It's a lot to take in. Yeah, that's for
Yeah,
sure.
no, but for me, I mean, I can talk for myself, but I think this has been, to be honest, very calming and positive, especially I feel like it's, especially now, like I think these last 2 weeks, as we all know, have been, again, we're into another very intense moment where, everybody, especially on Twitter, is talking about, money and gains and whatever, so I feel like for myself, it's a breath of fresh air, to be honest. And it's I resonate a lot with everything that has been said. So it's good to know, and I hope that the group that kind of like appreciates as well that there are alternatives, that not everything is what you see online or on Twitter, that there is more essentially to that.
Yep.
Yes, for sure. And I can vouch for the fact that all of our sessions feel just like this.
Yeah.
So you're all welcome.
Yeah, we do have a crypto art session. We have different. We have a governance session. We have so many sessions. I'm forgetting where we have. But if anyone wants to join, by all means, let us know, and we put you in the list. And you have also the opportunity. I know some of you have been drawing on DADA, which is great, and that's another very calming space. And I just really truly with what Nicole is talking about, like the frenzy that is going on right now. Like I go into DADA to see the new drawings that people have made, and I immediately changes my day and puts a smile on my face. So it's either even if it's just for seeing the art, and drawing is even more relaxing and fun. We just want you to know there's a space for you, where you can feel like. So one of our artists, the one's called Dada. Like it feels like she's in a warm tub, like in a warm, delicious bathtub, and that's the feeling that I would like to leave you with today.
Thanks, Judy.
Yeah, people you people are typing. I can read out if you
Sure,
if you
please.
can't speak, but if you have any thoughts, feel free to unmute. And Warg just said, Dada is meditative for me.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
We've seen your stuff.
Yeah.
It's adorable. I love it.
Can I say
Thank you for
something,
drawing
Nicole?
with us.
Of course.
That was my first class with Dada. I missed the first one, and this is really really amazing because it really brings to the human side. Yes, it's really organic. It's really deepful thoughts, and I really like it. Thank you so much, Dada.
Thank you.
Yes, it is. It's sometimes really important to be reminded that we aren't automated agents. We're not bots. We're not robots. We do actually have needs that machines or markets don't account for. And it's surfacing those that we feel is important, and can bring balance, right? We're not saying everybody should do it our way. What we're saying is everyone doesn't need to do it that way.
Yeah. And one thing that I want to add finally is that we are so consumed with only one type of value, and everything, the easiest type of value, the most loud type of value, the most overwhelming kind of monopolizing type of value is, of course, the value of money. And when we're talking about art, I've been realizing also, because we're launching the Crips and Weirdos pre-sale and everything, that there's a huge tension between art and money, and it's a tension that is unresolved, and it has been unresolved for all of art history pretty much, and I think it will always be unresolved. And I don't think that we are aware of how that we're living in this tension, or maybe you as artists, you probably are, but if we think that there are other ways to value art and your creativity, your imagination, or community or whatever, it's really kind of very soothing is not even the word, but very reassuring to know that you can look at other kinds of value, and you can look at other kinds of things that you value for yourself, and then it doesn't have to be this kind of like uh, uh, I don't know, terrible burden that you're not living up to the expectations of that one value that everybody seems to prioritize. So it's just good to know there are other values that can make you feel rich, can make you feel whole, can make you feel good, uh, productive, and valuable. And that's what the invisible economy is all about, and what DADA is all about.
Yeah, it's really
Yeah,
it's
and I
it's
mean,
so. I was gonna say that this collection that Dada is releasing is kind of like the goodbye to the hill one, as we call it, the market. So is the exit, the leaving. Dada is leaving the market, and that's a very old collection that was issued back then. So it's already there. It's not like a new thing that Dada is doing, but it's just kind of wrapping up and acknowledging the historical importance, as Pharaoh said, of this. But it feels like really good to be finally, like, hopefully soon done with it, so we can properly assure its place in history and leave all that, and go on to the further hills.
I can't wait.
Yeah, the cable car
is
is
that
is waiting already.
yeah, for sure. Who's the getaway driver?
Oh, I think it's like a self-driving electric cable car in my imagination.
Someone else wanted to say something?
Yeah,
I
go
heard a
ahead,
voice.
Walt.
We can't hear you very well, Walt.
In economy, like if you can't hear me.
Now, yeah.
Now a little better, yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. So I had a question about different like mediums. For example, if somebody does like a traditional art, is it possible to take part in the in invisible economy, and how does that work?
Yeah, it's
For example, like culture or photography or
So anyone who wants to participate in the invisible economy can participate. That participation can take whatever form they can imagine. If they, become a member of the community by contributing to the community with what they do, then they are a part of the invisible economy. That can take the form of attending meetings. That has often taken the form of drawing on data. But we don't dictate how that participation can happen. It is up to each individual and what they can see as ways that they can contribute. So it's not for us really to decide yes, no, you can, you can't, and that's really self-agency.
Yeah, we have people who are interested in just being there, and they kind of go to the sessions and sometimes write in the chat, or just are there every session because they enjoy and there isn't even like, like you have to now contribute something. No, it just really, really feel free to do what you feel is the right thing.
So send a DM to Judy and get an invitation to one of the sessions, and we can talk some more.
Yep. All right. I think if any, I don't know, Nicole, if anyone else has any more questions or.
If there's any questions, as always, feel free to add them in the chat. But in general, like I've reposted the DADA link if anybody wants to join, wants to draw. If you want to just join into the sessions, like I think like as Lenara or all of you were saying before, like you don't have to do anything to join. You can just like listen and take part. So yeah, like it's as simple as that.
Yes, just give us your email and we'll put you in the calendar.
Yeah, no, I mean, listening and participating is joining.
Exactly, yeah.
That's it.
Well, thank you both. Well, thank you all so much. It's always like amazing to hear from you, and I mean, for me, it was lovely. I feel so relaxed now.
Oh, good. So do I.
Good.
I think it's
one
probably
last thing that I'll add.
Yeah.
One last thing that I'll add, because it feels like I need to. We are not a cult. It's not something that you sort of join and you get indoctrinated, we're not a cult.
Yeah, we try hard to not be seen as a cult.
No, actually, that was one of my biggest concerns at the beginning. I was like, because we get so enthusiastic and because I'm like, wow, like we can't be a cult, all right? So everybody says, no, we're not a cult. No, but it's not. It's just really just a great way to explore different ideas and to also, debate them. Obviously, we practice, I think, honesty and transparency, and so people, it's not groupthink. It's really a wonderful way to learn and debate and discuss wonderful things, new things. All right. Thank you so much, Nicole. You're the best.
Thank you all for coming, and as always, it's a pleasure. If you have any questions for the resident artists, just let me know, and feel free to message Judy or Sparrow or Lenara or me. And you can be added onto the calendar. You can go whenever you want. You can not go. The space is there. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all. It was great.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All of that goes for you too, Nicole.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a good weekend. Bye.
You too.